When you confuse them, you lose them. Connor, in one of our group coaching calls, came up with that. And I think that's really, really true. A lot of times we talk about what we want to talk about. And in talking to acquisition targets or lawyers or accountants or board members, what's really important is to focus on what's important to them. Focus on the benefit to them, and not necessarily all the other things that you want to talk about on specifics which are important to you. So remember who you're talking to. But I get a lot of requests on what are the successful things that other people are doing. So I wanted to spend a few minutes to talk about that because there's some pretty powerful takeaways in here. Colette is a person who is in one of our groups, and she's been working her deal hard. I'm not going to tell you what industry she's in, but she's been working it hard. And she wrote in this week's update, signed engagement letter with a law firm, fee structure, billing 0 for broken deals, 20% premium for closed deals paid at closing, no retainer, and then set up corporate structure billed at the close of the first successful transaction. That's a pretty good accomplishment in all of those things, but it's not common to have them set up and incur the expense of setting up your corporation and then rolling that to the next successful transaction to actually collect those fees. So good job on that. But I think one of the most important things she said in her update was that she had contacted, this is 1 week, she had contacted 60 accounting firms. She'd spoken to 12 via Zoom or phone calls and more by emails. And the offers were varied, but they were not what she wanted. As she said, I don't have any offers I'm thrilled about. So she wanted to continue on. But one of the things I asked was, well, how are you explaining this? And she said, pretty much the same way that I do with the lawyers I talk about, that we need success-oriented fees. And I said, oh, okay. So it's okay to mention success-oriented fees to lawyers. However, with accountants, they have GAAP rules, generally accepted accounting principles, that they have to follow. And they can't have their opinions be dependent upon success or failure. So can you use discounted and rolled with them? Absolutely, you can. But success is pretty much the kiss of death. And so eliminate that when you're talking to accountants in your verbiage. But she said, side note, using the term earnout instead of seller finance is great. No more objections when using that term and financing comes up. I made that change based on our last coaching call. And in that coaching call, again, that was attributed to Connor. So in that call, he had 2 gems, and it shows you the value of a group that's a good group. The first one was his comment, when you confuse them, you lose them. And then the second one was just about earnout. And so you can explain that you want to, as far as financing, you want to keep the seller in the deal so that the representations made, you're sure, are accurate. And so either in whole or in part, you're going to have a seller earnout. Just if you're in the U.S., remember that earnout is not something that SBA financing will allow. So that's a side note on that. But I think there's a lot of lessons in this. And we talk about kissing frogs, and that gets old to some people, but boy, is that ever true. You know, when you think that Colette contacted 60 accounting firms in a week, she's going to make this happen. The other one that I talk about, or the person that I talk about frequently, is Sean. And Sean's completed his first 2 deals, as you've probably heard from the podcast, 23 and 54. And his third deal has fallen out of bed twice with respect to financing. But he is absolutely convinced that he's going to close this, and I know he will. And on Friday, after kissing a lot of frogs and having a lot of people turn him down, he ended up getting a term sheet on his next deal. That doesn't mean it's over. That means that he's got a term sheet, and so you still have to keep pushing. But the common thread in all of this is They follow the steps. They end up kissing a lot of frogs, and they don't get discouraged when they meet with a failure. They realize that's just a temporary defeat and to keep pushing on. So knowing what to do and how to do it is critical. I've mentioned this before, but if you're looking for what those steps are, the best work that I've done is the Deep Dive Boot Camp. And so if you go to brucewhipple.com/Deep Dive Boot Camp, you can get the details on that. But it's about 12 hours, a couple minutes short, 12 hours of training, templates, how to use the tools like LinkedIn, what scripts have worked, et cetera, et cetera. So I would encourage you to do that. In terms of success, knowing what to do is important. Being persistent is important. Kissing a lot of frogs is important. But one of the biggest mistakes people make is they want to jump to a deal and not follow the QLA steps that Dan Pedner put together more than 25 years ago now, and that's been tremendously successful in the wealth that it's generated. So I would encourage you to do that. And if you do, and if you work it hard, the successes I talk about are not that rare by people who follow the steps. Okay, so if you have any questions or comments or ideas for future episodes, please email bruce@brucewhipple.com. And if you're not already on our mailing list, head over to brucewhipple.com and sign up and grab any of the free reports. That'll put you on the mailing list. There is a lot of free information you can use to acquire already profitable businesses. This is Bruce Whipple. Thanks for listening to the Business Acquisition Podcast. And remember, you miss 100% of the opportunities you failed to take. And procrastination truly is the thief of time. So do something today, please. Your future self will be proud of you.